Before this story unfolds, take a moment for yourself. If you've ever wondered how a single ordinary choice can quietly alter the course of a life, then stay with me. If you've ever replayed a memory in your mind, wishing you had understood its importance sooner, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and watch until the very end. Because this isn't simply a story about one mistake. It's a story about how life can change through moments so small that we barely notice them while they're happening. People often think regret arrives the instant a wrong decision is made, but that's rarely true. Regret doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with flashing lights, loud warnings, or dramatic consequences. Instead, it waits in silence, patient, unseen, hidden just beyond our awareness, until the day we're finally forced to face it. And that day usually comes when everything else is quiet, late at night. When the world slows down and distractions disappear, certain memories return. A conversation, a glance, a choice that once seemed insignificant. They slip into your thoughts softly, almost unnoticed at first. Just a feeling, a question, a faint sense that something wasn't quite right. Then, little by little, they grow. What once felt harmless begins to take shape. Like dust gathering in the corners of a room, invisible for months until sunlight suddenly reveals how much has been there all along. And once you see it, you can't pretend it's not there. My own regret didn't begin with a fight or a dramatic turning point. There was no shouting, no betrayal, no obvious moment where I could say, "That's when everything changed." In fact, it started with something so ordinary that I barely gave it a second thought. If anyone had asked me about it back then, I would have shrugged and moved on. It seemed like just another day, another routine evening, another forgettable Tuesday. That Tuesday looked exactly like hundreds of others before it. Nothing remarkable happened that morning. No warning signs appeared. No feeling in the air suggested that anything important was about to begin. My husband, Michael, left early for a business trip. That was normal. Over the years, I'd become familiar with the routine, the suitcase by the door, the quick breakfast, the phone already buzzing with work before he'd even left the house. As always, he kissed my forehead before heading out. "I'll call you later," he said. Then he was gone. The front door closed behind him. And the house immediately felt different, not empty, not lonely. Just quieter. The kind of silence that settles into a home when someone who belongs there is suddenly absent. I stayed late at work that evening. By the time I finally headed home, darkness had already begun to settle across the neighborhood. Exhaustion weighed heavily on me. My thoughts felt slow, tangled, and distant. All I wanted was a simple evening, a warm meal, a hot shower, a few hours of sleep, nothing more. But the second I stepped inside the house, something felt wrong. Not alarming, not frightening, just different. I stood in the entryway for a moment, keys still in my hand, listening. Then I heard it. Water, a soft, steady trickle coming from somewhere upstairs. Immediately, I knew who it was. Liam. My stepson must have come home from university earlier than expected. Liam had always been quiet. Not shy exactly, but careful, thoughtful, the kind of person who moved through life without drawing attention to himself, even around the house. His presence was gentle, measured. After losing his mother, that quietness seemed to deepen. What had once been part of his personality slowly became a shield, and he wore that shield well. I climbed the stairs slowly, listening as the sound of water grew clearer. When I reached the top floor, I noticed something unusual. The bathroom door was slightly open. Steam drifted through the narrow gap, curling into the hallway like pale smoke before disappearing into the dim light. The sight immediately unsettled me because Liam wasn't careless. He was organized, private, deliberate. Open bathroom door was unlike him. Then the water stopped. The sudden silence felt heavier than the sound itself, and that's when I heard it, a quiet sob, barely audible, the sound of someone trying desperately not to cry. I froze. "Liam." I called softly. No answer. Part of me wanted to walk away, To give him privacy. To pretend I hadn't heard anything. Some pain feels too personal to witness. Some moments seem to belong only to the person living through them, but concern has a way of overpowering. Hesitation. I knocked gently. Then, before I could change my mind, I pushed the door open. Liam was sitting on the bathroom floor, fully dressed, his back rested against the wall. His knees were pulled tightly against his chest, his arms wrapped around them as if holding himself together. His shoulders trembled, only slightly, but enough. His eyes were red. His hands shook as he wiped at his face. I'm Finney, he said immediately. Too quickly. The crack in his voice revealed the truth long before his words did. I didn't rush toward him. I didn't offer advice. I simply sat down a few feet away. The silence between us stretched on, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt full. Heavy. With everything neither of us knew how to say. You don't have to be fine, I finally said. His eyes remained fixed on the floor. What's going on? For several seconds, he didn't answer. I thought he might retreat back into his silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. I don't know what's wrong with me anymore. The words landed harder than I expected because they weren't spoken with anger or frustration or self-pity. They sounded lost, completely lost. I can't sleep, he continued. I can't focus. I feel like I'm disappearing from myself. There was something deeper behind those words, something that had been growing for a long time, since his mother's death. Grief had never truly left our home. It had simply changed shape. It lingered in unfinished conversations, avoided memories, and all the things none of us knew how to talk about. And now, for the first time, it was standing directly in front of me. I wanted to comfort him. The instinct was immediate, but I hesitated. Because there is a delicate line between helping someone carry their pain and becoming the only thing holding them up. And in that moment, I realized how difficult it can be to see where that line exists. You're carrying more than anyone should carry alone, I said quietly, for the first time. He looked directly at me. Really looked at Emmy. His eyes searched mine as though he was hoping to find certainty. Or reassurance, or maybe just proof that things could eventually improve. Do you think it ever gets easier? He asked. The question wasn't casual. It was hope asking for permission to survive. I took a breath. Then answered honestly. Double quotes. Yes, I believe it can. It wasn't a perfect answer, but sometimes people don't need perfect answers. Sometimes they simply need someone willing to stay. When I finally left that bathroom, the house felt different. Nothing had visibly changed, yet somehow everything had. That night, sleep refused to come. I stared into the darkness, replaying every word, every expression, every moment, and one thought kept returning. I had stepped into something fragile. Something complicated, something I didn't fully understand. At the time, I believed I was simply helping someone who was hurting. What I didn't realize was that I had entered a space where boundaries become difficult to see. A quiet, invisible space. And sometimes that's exactly where the biggest changes begin.